Good evening, ma'am. Can we start now?
Just give me 2 or 3 minutes. I'm just getting into a place.
Yeah, sure, ma'am. Yeah. Shall we start now?
Hi. Yeah, we can start now. Am I audible?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am,
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah. Sorry
Ma'am,
for
would
the
you like
delay.
to switch on your cam? Yes, that's okay, ma'am. Would you like to switch
Yeah,
on your
just
cam?
give me a minute. I'm just opening my laptop. I think meanwhile I can just introduce.
All right.
Do you want me to share the screen or is it okay for
No, ma'am,
you?
that's all right. That's all right. We
Okay.
already have someone presenting the screen.
Thank you. Sure. So I'll quickly introduce myself. I'll switch on the camera in about 2 to 3 minutes. I'm just logging from my laptop. So hi guys. Sorry for the delay from my end. So, quick introduction about me. I'm currently working with 100x.vz as an analyst here. Before that, I was a part of an angel network called Mumbai Angels Network, when my primary role in both the companies is to kind of look for startups, right, evaluate them, and then eventually get them funded. So, I've kind of worked through the entire deal cycle, wherein we evaluate startups stage by stage. So, I've evaluated startups which are right at an MVP stage till a pre-series A kind of a, deal size is where I have exposure to. Right? So this is a quick background about myself. If you could change this slide, please, I'll introduce what we do at 100x first. So at 100x.vc, we are a SEBI-registered Cat 1 fund, wherein we invest in early stage startups using an instrument called iSafe, right? When I say we invest in early stage, it means we look at minimum viable product or pre-traction kind of a stage where we evaluate startups and then eventually not only funding, we look at supporting them in every aspect, throughout their Series A, throughout their Series B funding as well. So what we do is we invest via a cohort-based mechanism wherein we club in about 10 to 15 startups in a single slot, and then we announce it via a VC pitch day, wherein our ticket size is limited to 25 lakhs, but we uh, kind of enable startups to raise the balance round from the VC pitch day, which we conduct for each cohorts. Uh, we are a 2.5-year-old fund wherein we have invested in about 70 startups so far, completely sector agnostic. We look at anything from deep tech, health tech, fintech, every completely sector agnostic. But we have a certain thesis which we look at. Uh, First one is the something which is not very capital incentive, right? So we look for startups which are very asset light, which can kind of survive without a lot of funding requirement at the initial stages, right? The second thing which we look at is usually uh, the startup shouldn't have raised any other funds because we like to come in as the first institutional investor, and a lot of other subjective things, based on what sector are they in, what has been the traction so far. So this is a basic background about 100x. So we can move on. So firstly, what I would like to try and cover in this presentation is on the what is uh, basically how do you exactly pitch to a VC or any investor, basically, right? So before you would, how do you kind of approach all of them? So usually we also get a lot of requests from through LinkedIn or through direct email reach outs, right? So that's the first thing where we there are two sources where we also look for startups. We reach out to the startup founders ourselves, and the second one is where we get a lot of inbound queries from founders and others. So this is the second method where we talk, where you approach the investor, and how do you take start the conversation, and what are the things you need to include in the conversation to try and have a successful like funding by the end of the conversation. So, firstly, there are few questions which a founder needs to ask himself before you kind of come to a VC for pitching. So, first thing is, what is the reason for your company's existence? So, what's the end problem you're going to try to solve? Is it bringing more efficiency to the existing process? Is it bringing a user experience which is different? So, what is it the core mission you're trying to solve? Right? What is the value proposition? What is the solution you're trying to build? Right? And what is the total, like, the if you guys are aware, what is the basic thing we need to pitch to an investor is called a pitch deck. Right? It's a basic presentation where you cover a lot of things which I'll tell you during the presentation. So what is the basic one liner or a two liner which defines you as a company? So that's something which a founder needs to have clarity on before you end up start pitching to an investor. Right? Uh, can we move on to the slides? So the second thing where you would need as a founder, you need few clarity is where imagine where you could be. So what is the total market size, right, which you're trying to address? What is the addressable opportunity? So is there a niche you're trying to build, or is the market size too big for you? So what is it that where do you want to kind of position yourself is where you will have to be very clear before you pitch to an investor. Uh, can you move to the next one? So, and the next step is to understand where you are now, right? So whether so what is the traction you have achieved? So if you're trying to build an app, so what is it? The app is in beta version, or have you tried already? Do you have a users who are already kind of using it and giving you feedback? What has been the feedback like? Measuring basically putting metrics to whatever you're building, right? So that kind of gives a perspective for an investor to kind of tell us, this is the stage I am in, right? And this is what has been achieved so far, and this is what I'm looking to achieve in the coming months, right? The second thing is capital funds, what you need to scale. So whenever you come and pitch to an investor, you need to have a clear number on, this is what I'm looking at. I'm looking to raise 1 crore, and this is what is the would be the end usage of the funds. So it will be can be to hire a team or to kind of build a tech, converting your MVP to this, MVP to a product ready stage. So whatever is maybe you need to have the right utilization of funds you're going to be raised. Right? And what is it that core competencies you have as a team that which none of the other startups in the space can do. So that's a complete competitive analysis is where what gives you an edge over others is where the founders needs to be clear before they pitch to us. So the next is why isn't everyone working on it? So like I said, right? Whenever some founders have the tendency to kind of tell that there is no competition in the space, but that's something you need to avoid because you will have to have a feature by feature competitive and a landscape in your deck to kind of help us understand the product better, right? And also it gives you a sense where what will be the positioning like and how are you kind of doing it differently. The second point is what's the unfair advantage, right? So is it something like I said, right? What is it that you're trying to build? Is it very different from what is there existing, or it's completely innovative? So that the positioning or the unfair advantage should be very clear in your first pitch, right? And what are the entry barriers to it? So whether it's a regulation, whether it is your core competency as a team. So what is it that you feel is the sorry, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are.
Yeah, sorry. So let's move on to the next slide. So why do you feel you will do better is something you need to. So what essentially, see, these are very subjective whenever we look for a startup and then they come in, we kind of evaluate them and then get them funded. So these are very, we need to have the conviction in the founders. So at our stage where we get onto funding at such an initial stage where the product is not something we see, right? Eventually, because there will be a lot of changes in the product as and when you grow. But the conviction on the founders is very is where we take a bet on at the initial stage. Right? That's what my experience has been. So you need to have like a proper business plan. So you say, right, I'm building a SaaS model. So what is that? What is it? What are the revenue streams you're looking at? What is the price range you're looking at, right? And you need to check on, what is it that your competitors are offering, or how what are the features they are adding on, or what are the features you're adding on, and what is the extra price point which you're planning to charge. And in terms of go to market, is there anything which is different or that you're targeting? So those kind of questions is there. These are the things which you need to know as a founder before you are kind of, speaking to any investor. So next, I'll jump on to things to improve as a founder whenever you kind of pitch to an investor, right? The first is whenever you write an elevator pitch, suppose you write, Hi Shobna, I would like to, present my idea. So I would always suggest put a number to it. Or suppose, like, for example, if you're trying to say, I'm building a healthcare product, which is kind of doing this. So instead of putting it like that, you can say it kind of builds in 50% more efficiency. So that kind of catches the attention of a VC. Oh, it's trying to solve a bigger problem, right? So that's something which you need to bring in your one liner, because we get about 12,000 decks every quarter. So right, whenever we look for a pitch deck, so it depends on the one liner which you share, right? If it's catchy, we kind of go ahead and look at a detailed deck which you might have shared. Right? So the second thing is, so like I said, right, I instead of saying I built 128-bit encryption, so you put a number to whatever things you talk about, right? So like you can see in this slide, right? We instead of putting like we want to become a biggest security software startup, we can put it saying we want to become 100 million in ARR as security startup in the next 3 years. So whatever it gives up a larger perspective to me, right? So and the second thing is a everything what you're building should have a number. Like suppose you're building in efficiency, or you're building in, suppose if you're building in efficiency, right? So what is the time saved, right? What is the efficiency built? What is the cost saved? All these things needs to be there on your pitch deck, right? So if you don't get a VC's or an investor's attention just by writing a long language. You need to put in a proper number in terms of, what is the cost saved, what is the time saved. Those kind of matrix is uh, catches a lot of attention from the VCs. Moving on to the next is you need to use a consistent unit in throughout your pitch deck, right? So if you're using saying if you're using all the numbers in Indian rupees, you maintain that consistency. If you're using it in USD, you maintain that consistency. So that's something which a lot of founders kind of make mistake. The next is so usually what happens whenever we ask for, what is the utilization of fund to any founder. So usually they say, it's the founder's salary, we want to keep 20-25% of it, or whatever is the percentage maybe. But usually as an investor, for me, it's a big red flag, right? At a very early stage. You can look at the founder's salary component at maybe after your one or two rounds is raised, right? So because we look for us, the money should go into building the product, getting it, into the market. The money should be utilized for marketing to generate revenue in the business instead of me paying for the founder's salary, basically. We can move on to the next. So usually, this is what we have seen. Uh, like right? So it takes about 7 meetings to close a deal with a VC. That is what is an average number, right? So what we usually do is we first step as a VC is we try and speak to you and ask you to take us through the pitch deck which you prepared, right? So in case if there is no objection or we don't question you anything, then that means we are not looking at it for a funding perspective right now. So that is being the general trend in the BC, right? Right, and similar like questions around market size. So that means we don't believe that the idea can be scaled or these are very general things. So in case like when we talk about business models, it's something where we don't see a clear vision of you making the revenue clearly, right? So that's something, these are few things which we clarify when we don't get a comfort on certain points. So if you could move to a slide where hear money 3 times, right? So this kind of covers all the previous slides. So when a founders talk about market size or market, a solution or any problem which they're planning to solve. So for us, see, as a VC, why do we invest in a business? Is we want to kind of make an exit and make money, right? That's the basic business of a VC. So we look at what we try and understand from our perspective. Is there a money to be made? Like, is there a larger market to be solved? Is there a current problem which needs to be solved, right? And the second thing, whenever you talk about execution, financial projections, your team, so we look at it more in the perspective of, okay, this founder has a vision. So can these people make money for us, right? Do you have the right set of capabilities, right set of uh, qualifications to kind of execute what you're projecting, right? And whenever we discuss on the terms of the investments that we are discussing on the valuation or what is the investment round, so then for us we have a perception in mind saying, how much money can I make? So if I'm entering at an X valuation, what will be the valuation when I exit? So if it's like an 8x or 10x, what is the number? We have a whenever we we discuss this, we have something going on behind our mind saying, this is the amount I'm looking to make at this. So the next is um, whenever you send a pitch deck, whenever you approach an investor, so like I would recommend you uh, approach them via LinkedIn or you approach them via a email, right? Keep it very short. These are few tips. Keep it very short in terms of, uh, just a one liner, which should be eye catchy with a lot of numbers, right? And also use a lot of smart jargons, which, kind of attracts a lot of VCs, right? And also the biggest thing is to kind of, make them feel fear of missing out. So you need to present it in that way that, they feel, oh, they are missing out on this, larger market, which they're not, by not investing in that. Mm. And then you can use a lot of in terms of whenever if there is any product or any tech you guys are sharing, you can use a lot of demo videos for us to understand better. Because when you see a video, you have a lot of things answered already, right? And your heading and your closing should be very persuasive. And always do mention your contact details because in case we are interested, we kind of come back to you and set up a call and then how do you take this forward. So few closing notes in terms of like I'll just brief things apart from what's not covered in this slide. So firstly, you need to kind of invest time and more it's about the way of pitching rather than what you're pitching, right? So sometimes we kind of uh, give a lot of weightage to the founders rather than the product themselves, right? And as a startup founder, you need to build your own network and ask for investor. Whenever you're stuck somewhere, you need to ask for investors' help. Suppose you have already connected with us, right? And you need some introductions to be done by us. You always need to seek help, right? And few things which we have kind of invested in a couple of solo founder companies, but even that's not a regular norm in the VC industry. We like to kind of have two co-founders who kind of complement each other's skill set and and build the product right. So not everything can be taken by one founder. So and whenever you're sharing a deck, make sure it is completely the content, the design, and the investment proposition is in complete detail, right? And especially include numbers wherever possible. Right? And so if you are looking to raise and close a round, right, in say about 2 to 3 months, right, and calculate three times more time than that. So because everyone's evaluation process is going to take a lot of time, right? So if you're estimating to close in 1 month, you keep a buffer of 2 more months or 3 more months. That's how the time takes in terms of closing the deals with a VC. And of course, there are not even for us. We don't kind of if we reject a deal right now, it's not that we don't look at the companies at a later stage. So you need all the constant is to you keep in touch and keep updating us on the progress. So if it might not be of interest right now, but 3 to 4 months down the line, we might, still end up investing. And the last thing is you need to keep rehearsing on how to pitch so that within a limited time frame, you're able to cover all the points. So, quick thing on what we look at from an 100x perspective is the founding team because we invest at a very early stage, and all we can bet on is with the founding team how good they are, how good they are, and how well they can execute, and what is the market opportunity, how big is the market, and business model strength. what is being the revenue model, when do you see them commercializing, right? And what is the unfair advantage, right? What is the difference between what is the difference between them and the existing players in the market? And we don't invest in any startup which where we don't have our own conviction that we can make a minimum of 20x returns in terms of exit. That's it from my end. Open to questions if you guys want.
So you can ask your questions now. You can type it out in the chat box and I will read them out, or you can unmute and speak as well.
Ma'am, what's the main thing that you as a VC look at? Is it the founding team or the business model or unfair advantage? Like if you had to pick one, then what would it be?
See, it's a combination. What if the product is not good and the founders are good, right? So sometimes the founders are not open to feedback. So ultimately, we don't have a lot of control in change of their product. So it's a combination. It's very subjective. Whenever we look at a deal, right? Everything should come into place.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Ma'am, Vedantam Muralidhar has a question. What is the proof of concept that you check in the young founders, especially in student startups?
Okay. So proof of concept, we look at your demo firstly, right? And in terms of, see, we have an in-house CTO who kind of helps us with the tech, evaluating the tech startups. We look at your demo. So we don't invest in ideation stage. We look at a minimum viable product which you can show us, right? A demo on, how is it working? What are the, and we keep having a regular product calls with all our portfolio companies on, checking how is the progress being. Does that answer your question?
Ma'am, so we have few questions from Google Form.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So one question is, how do we convey our exact intentions to the investor and ensure that there are no misconceptions about our idea in their mind?
So, see, for that, you need to prepare the pitch and rehearse the pitch very clearly, because an investor will give you, say, about 15 to 30 minutes of a time slot, and where you communicate only the important things, right? So this is the problem I'm solving. This is the solution I've built. So I think these two, if you're trying to convince, I think that kind of sets a context for the next call.
All right, ma'am. Another question is, what mistakes should we avoid while giving a pitch? What is the best pitch you have seen and why?
Uh, See, I'll tell you about a deal. I'll not disclose the name, but it was kind of it was in my previous job. Um, so when I spoke to the founders, somewhere I had in mind that they didn't have the right qualifications to build a product and all. But I found the founders so convincing, about the tech they were trying to build. I ended up taking the deal forward within the angel network, and I also got them funded. So I feel somewhere it is about the founders who kind of, perceive you or convince you on, whether what they're doing is correct. It's sometimes, see, it's about the founders kind of, con- like their conviction on the product is what kind of, helps you take it forward. I think you should be confident with what you're building, uh, and then, like convince us, because ultimately it's your confidence which kind of helps us uh, evaluate it further basically.
Understood, ma'am. Yeah. So we have a question from YouTube. Rishikesh Gupta was asking, almost all fields are having startups in them. So do you believe in investing in already existing products with just a few changes?
Yeah, that is how the whole system ecosystem is, right? Uh, like it's not that you're going to build anything very extraordinary. You might. So there are only two ways where you can kind of come. It's very innovative. It's not there in the market, or it's there in the market, but you're building something a bit of an add-on, right? So it entirely depends on what is the moat you're trying, or what is the difference you're trying to build in the ecosystem. So I think
Okay.
it's fine if even if you build, uh, a like a similar see there if you look at skincare range, there are a lot of uh, brands in terms of startup ecosystem as well, and there are a lot of established players. But everyone should have an unfair advantage on what is it that different they're building. That's more important from an investor's end.
Okay. Vedantam Murlidhar has another question. Rejection is quite common in startup investment scenario. How to deal with it and stay confident with our vision of the product?
See, one thing, if you look at, you know, take a lot of feedbacks from, a lot, since you guys have our student startup community, take a lot of feedback from your professors, right? In terms of building the product, speak to a lot of tech people, pitch your product often to them, right? That's something which, will help you also to improvise on the tech you're building or whatever is the product, right? In terms of investors, if you want to kind of keep connect, send them, like, even if we reject a startup today, right? We can look at it at a later stage, right? So you keep sending us a regular update. Say, last time I spoke, we had built this. Now, these are the things which we have added. Do you want to speak to us again? So those kind of repeated emails is where you need to send to an investor to keep us also updated on what you are trying to build. And yes, of course, if you're reaching out to 50 or 100 investors, you might be able to speak to one or two. That has been the response rate. But I think be open to feedbacks, and try and inculcate them, and come back to us saying, this is what you have suggested last time. This was been the improvements so far. So I think that could build a lot of rapport between you and the startup founders and the investors.
We have one more question, ma'am. How do we validate if our idea works, and on what basis do the mentors are the mentors given by the investors?
Sorry, I'll ask the first question on how do you validate it. So you
Yeah,
test
if
it
your idea
via,
works.
yeah, so you test it via a limited user base first, right? So whenever, if you're building an app or whatever it is, suppose it's a health tech product, you do a bit of clinical trials, on is it really helpful? A bit of a testing from your own circle, whatever you have, your own network is important, right? And what was the second question? Sorry. Sorry, you're on mute.
Sorry, ma'am. Yes. How do the investors provide mentors? Like, on what basis are they provided?
Uh, Mentorship, you're asking?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, see, an investor will kind of be very hands-on once they they are already invested in the company, right? So as 100, I'll talk about 100x perspective. What we do is, since once you're already a portfolio company, we do a lot of mentorship in terms of, your go-to-market, your financial projections. I We kind of review the company every month in terms of, what has been the progress, month on month, quarter on quarter. And our mentorship would depend what you ask for, right? So if you need any specific help, if anything that we can do in terms of connecting you with the right business people, we do that. In fact, all investors will be happy to help if you ask for it in terms of business connects, in terms of you know rectifying your go to market, in terms of your cash flow, how are you managing them. Sometimes we get a lot of queries on whether this person is right fit for our startup. So we evaluate profiles for them as well. We do an interview where they are hiring senior people as well. So those all things are kind of taken care by the investors. Provided the only thing is you need to ask for the help wherever you're stuck.
Yeah, understood, ma'am. Arnav, we can ask a question.
Yeah. Ma'am, when you fund startups, so like how do you get your funds back? Do you wait for the company to go IPO or like how does that
So
work?
what happens? See, there are a lot of different stages of VC, right? For us at 100x, we come in at a very early stage. So our exit is usually at a Series A or Series B, right? Because and for some, like a big players who enter in at Series A or Series B, they'll wait till the IPO comes.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, there's another question. So, when you're presenting a pitch, how to tackle those questions which are not clear to you or you don't know the answer for? Like, how do you manage at that time?
So it's completely fine. You can just, say, I'll get back to you or I'll share the details offline with you. That's completely fine.
All right, ma'am. Does anyone have any other questions? Parimal Kumar says, where to get the technical support to develop and make our idea practically possible?
Good. So look for a lot of incubators and accelerators who might support, your idea because they have a right lab support. And there are, so like I would say, look for it. There are a lot of colleges who have an in-house incubators or e-cells who kind of, a lot of technical support is given by them. And I feel if you are building into some specific sectors, so there are few government bodies who kind of have a specific sectors lab which is built. Uh, all over India, you can, kind of Google, depends on what is the product you're building. So I think they will be the right person to provide you with the right infrastructure and a lot of technical help to build to a minimum viable product stage. Does that answer your question?
Are there any other questions? If not, then we can conclude. As this amazing talk comes to an end, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you, ma'am, for taking out time from your busy schedule and agreeing to deliver this talk today. I'm Sriharsha, and on behalf of Center for Innovation and Incubation NIT Warangal, I thank you all for attending today's talk, which was a part of Firefly, a CAII flagship event. We couldn't have hoped for a more enriching talk as a part of our Firefly program. This talk rightly sets the tone for all the upcoming events and sessions that we have planned for our students. It truly has been wonderful. It truly has been wonderful listening to ma'am share her experiences and guidance with us. Wishing you all a wonderful evening. Thank you for attending.
Thank you very much. So before we sign off, I just wanted to kind of, I've shared my email ID in case you're building anything which you need help in terms of funding or anything, any questions you might have, feel free to reach out. We'll be happy to help you. Uh,
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.